He's written on immigrant life in Canada, on midlife crisis, on the fictional life and times of Jesus Christ. Now, a bit of a departure for author Nino Ricci and his new book, Sleep, a book about sleep, or the lack of it, in one man's life, and the havoc that wreaks. And we welcome Nino Ricci back to TVO. It's great to see you again.
Pleasure to be here.
Okay, so let me set up the discussion by reading a little excerpt from the book, and then we'll fire away with some questions. Your protagonist here. He has always thought of sleep as a kind of 0 to waking's 1, with the occasional dream thrown in like static, when it is a place as varied and shifting and strange as the ocean floor, moving through permutations that have as little to do with each other as with waking itself. REM and NREM, theta sleep and delta sleep, the alpha flatlines and jagged spindles and K-complex spikes that are like the creak and moan of the brain shutting the door to the outer world. Out of these, a shape emerges that is called the architecture of sleep. Okay, Nino, why a novel about sleep?
Well, a lot of reasons. The first inspiration came when I myself came down with a sleep disorder and started thinking about sleep.
What'd you have?
It's a sort of a mild version of narcolepsy, essentially. And it's a much milder version of what the character in the novel suffers from. And it just started me thinking about sleep in a way I never had before. I'd taken it for granted, as most of us do. And I think about the fact that we spend, a third of our lives at it without really considering much what goes on there. And the more I learned, the more interesting, really, it became. And the more I discovered how much of a dilemma it has become for so many people in our society, and increasingly so as night sort of disappears, as it has been doing for the past 150 years or so, ever since the light bulb was invented. But all the more so now, when the world kind of operates on this 24/7 cycle. And as people feel more and more pressed to sort of be present all the time and ready for action all the time.
Did you get over your sleep problems?
Well, I treat it. I have various methods.
So you still struggle with it
then? To deal with it, but it's an ongoing thing. It doesn't go away. It's as the doctor says to the character in the novel, it's a deep brain disorder. There's something there that's gone awry and needs to be dealt with.
Well, here we go. I'm going to try and read another excerpt for the book that's got a lot of big, long words to make my life hectic right now, but we're going to try this anyway. Here we go. 3 years after his diagnosis, his pharma regime is still stunningly hit and miss. Becker, for all the banker's parsimoniousness he showed at the outset, has been happy to ply him with every sort of psychotropic, pushing his dosages to the upper limits with each new cocktail as if he were an expendable specimen in a rat trial. Phenethylamines and tricyclics, drugs to boost his serotonin or his dopamine or his norepinephrine, a so-called smart drug promising 72 hours of wakefulness at a stretch, time-released drugs with delivery systems as sophisticated as an ICBM. How much of this is autobiographical? I guess I want to know that.
Well, those drugs are out there. I have not been through the kind of regime that my character goes through. I think like most fiction writers, you take that germ of the autobiographical and you extrapolate. You think, well, what if I push this to the extreme? What if, I went through the full 9 yards of this experience? And that's what I push my character to, really, as a way of kind of opening up that world and seeing the full spectrum of it.
Now, he's very skeptical at times of that world. Are you as well?
Of the world of sleep science?
Yeah.
Well, it's surprising how recently we've really started to take sleep seriously as a subject of study, and how little is known for certain. I'm not quite the skeptic that my character is. He tends to have a more black and white view of the world. But it's true that we still are at the frontier of understanding a lot of these issues.
And we seem to be in a place these days, you read it everywhere in your novel and of course in nonfiction as well, where we are increasingly into a heavy reliance on pharmaceuticals in order to get through the night. What do you think that says about us these days?
Well, I think it says that a lot of us are having problems sleeping. A lot of us don't understand really what sleep is and how crucial it is to who we are. I mean, how much actually goes on during sleep. Memory formation goes on during sleep. Consolidation of learning goes on during sleep. Often if you're in the night, you might be practicing your scales and play, Moonlight Sonata better in the morning than you had at night, just through the efforts of your dreams and your sleep. A lot of researchers believe that, our very idea of who we are is formed during sleep. That part of the process of sleep and part of the purpose of sleep is to sort of shave off the uncomfortable edges of ourselves, so that when we wake up in the mornings, we can feel good about ourselves. So to sublimate a lot of our aggressions, to sublimate maybe some of the humiliations we've suffered the day before, so that when we wake up in the morning, we feel good and are ready to sort of face the day as a kind of purposeful actor.
That is probably the opposite of what your main character, a guy named David, a university professor, goes through. He is one, I got to tell you, first of all, love the book, but he is one messed up dude. He's got a lot of problems in his life. And just help me understand whether or not you would attribute all of, because you know him, you created him. Is all of that attributable to the fact that this guy's got so many bad sleeping problems?
I created him, but I don't really know where he came from. He's certainly not me.
He's not you. I'm glad to hear he's not you.
Yeah.
Because I wouldn't want your life to be that miserable.
And I'm not sure that I've, plumbed his depths. But he clearly has problems that predate his sleep disorder. And in a certain sense of the book, his sleep disorder is a kind of wake-up call for him, for his own failure to deal with sort of some fundamental issues in his life, and failure to sort of come to terms with his own lack of self-knowledge, essentially. And a lot of the novel is really about him slowly unfolding himself to himself. And in some ways, the sleep disorder opens that up to him, because he suddenly starts, the borders between who he has pretended to be and who he really is start to dissolve as a result of the disorder.
There is a moment in the book, though, where, and I suspect anybody watching this has secretly had one of these moments that they don't want to tell anybody about. He's driving his son in the car, and he winks out, right? Mm-hmm. Does that happen to you?
No, it has not.
Terrifying moment, though.
Yes, it can be. It would be terrifying. I've certainly been in the car where I've felt sleep coming on and stopped and dealt with it. But he's a character who wants to deny that weakness in himself, and suddenly realizes, oh my God, I'm putting not only my life at risk, but my son's life at risk. Mm-hmm.
Here is another excerpt from the book indicating more on David, your lead character, on his journey. Tell him he is lost, has made a mistake, has taken a wrong turn, or wonder how someone who claims such an interest in history has not even bothered to understand his own. He is the man of history who wants to stand outside it, who wants to think he is born out of nothing, who doesn't want to pay. He must remember to save a coin for the ferryman for the trip back. This is interesting. I took Latin in high school, so I got the reference to the ferryman for the trip back. I assume that's the guy when you're going to Hades. Charon, is that his name?
I think that's it, yeah.
Charron. Right. So your professor here, your Professor David, you've made him a classical historian.
Yes.
He's an expert in ancient Rome. Any reason in particular that you chose that as his métier? How come?
Very specific reasons. Partly because it fits with who he is and things I want to say about him. But within the novel, I was trying to set up this kind of contrast between or parallel between the present day and some of the ways in which we think about ancient Rome as this age of decadence, as this age that reached this kind of high point, really, of culture, and then this sort of ripe point, and then this rotting point that is just beyond it, where people almost out of a kind of cultural boredom, began to seek ever more outrageous forms of stimulation.
As your character does.
As my character does. And as we can see in our society now, that the more gadgets, the more gizmos, the more media we get, the more we need, really, just to give us that rush and push us to that limit.
Forgive me, it gets more dangerous for him because it's not just gadgets and iPhones and the latest iPod and this, that, and the other thing. He develops a lust for guns. Are you saying we're, as a society, heading in that direction as well?
Well, I don't think it's a matter of heading there. We've been there.
Even in Canada?
Really, well, I mean, we've been there since the inception of humans. I mean, we have had that violent streak within us always. I think in his case, it's a matter of, what happens when there is no normal outlet for it. I think for him, it's also sort of tied in with this sort of frustrated masculinity that he suffers from, and is looking for an outlet for that, and guns become it for him. So they serve that sort of dual purpose of giving him that stimulation he's looking for, that rush, but also of making him feel in control, making him feel like this is one thing where I feel totally in control and totally willful.
It goes beyond that, though, right? I mean, it's not just that he gets a charge out of the guns. He teaches his kid how to kind of have a bit of a gun lust as well. And he brings the gun into his sexual life as well, in pretty, what seem like, fairly unhealthy ways. What are you saying here?
Well, I'm not presenting David Pace as an example of someone whose model we should follow.
I'm glad to hear that.
I'm examining really the sort of I guess the deconstruction of his character, as he's got this push in him that he doesn't understand, that he's trying to get to the bottom of. He's trying to find sort of the rock bottom of himself, and keeps pushing the envelope in terms of the kinds of activities he engages in to feel alive, to feel like he's clear and present in the world. And I think we often hear, for instance, of people who've been to war, and how, as horrible as that experience was, that was a point in their lives when they felt most alive. So he's constantly looking for that place, and it happens to come to him when he's holding a gun in his hands, and he keeps putting himself in more and more extreme situations, and almost in a kind of addiction to keep reliving that feeling.
Let's take a little side journey here into the world of academia, because the picture he's a university professor, and the picture you paint of some of the post-secondary world's office politics is pretty grim sometimes. Can we make a little list here? You have taught where? You've taught at Princeton?
Yes.
Where else?
I've taught in many places.
A lot of places.
I've served as writer-in-residence in a number of places.
Go ahead, just fire off a few names here.
Windsor, Colorado, the University in Cleveland, in Bridgewater, Massachusetts.
You've been around.
University of Toronto, Scarborough, yeah.
Okay, so obviously, again, one wonders whether or not your own personal experiences are reflected in the pages of this book, because some of the experiences in the book are, don't say lovely things about academia.
Yeah, the book is not intended as an indictment of academia. You can find the whole gamut of experience there as you can elsewhere. That said, I think there are, a lot of unhappy people in academia, and you find, as you do elsewhere, every sort of politicking and backstabbing and bureaucratic red taping as you would in any organization. I mean, academia is not somehow exempt from the normal bustle and tussle of normal human behavior. And David Pace experiences some of the extremes of that, certainly in his own life.
It's interesting that you keep calling him David Pace. He is an Italian-Canadian character. And his real name, I guess, is Pache.
Yes.
But you keep calling him Pace, and everybody keeps calling him Pace. But I wonder whether that sort of reflects a, well, you know, you've written about the Italian experience many times in the past, whether that reflects some kind of tension between Pace and Pace, the old and the new world, the world he came from, the world he wants to fit into, all of that.
Yeah, it's certainly something that's part of his dynamic, that he has tried to sort of get beyond his immigrant roots and really wants to accede sort of to the aristocracy of Canadian society and feels that that immigrant background as something that might hold him back. And so has always gone with that disguise, I guess, of being a non-ethnic.
One of the reasons I found the book so rich is that you really do, you dive deep into sleep, you dive deep into the world of academia, you dive deep into the world of sort of interfamily dysfunction and relationships, and it's all really, it's also real. And one of the most seemingly true to life themes in the book is the marriage this poor guy has. And his marriage is awful. And you know, I won't give away too much of it here, but the conversations that you have recreated in the book, where did that come from, Nino? Because it's just so real for so many people.
You know, I watch a lot of reality TV.
Not your own.
We've all had conversations that we would not like publicly broadcast. I mean, it's kind of a universal experience, those moments of discord, you know, of radically different worldviews between husband and wife, the squabbling over the most petty kinds of details that then opens up this whole can of worms, and out of which a whole relationship can dissolve. But you know, I've had the experience of having an argument with my wife and then getting on a plane and going to Italy and being in, say, my cousin's apartment in Perugia and hearing my cousin have exactly the same argument I had just had with my wife, you know, with her husband, and realizing, you know, we all fight about the same kinds of things, and often they are these small things that become the nodal point for those much bigger issues.
I see the ring on your left ring finger, though. So
I'm still happily married.
You are, well, I was going to, I couldn't, you know, I did want to ask, but did your wife read the book?
She did read the book.
And when
yes.
she read those conversations between husband and wife, those very uncomfortable, dysfunctional, bitter conversations, did she have any questions for you?
She was under instructions to give only unconditional praise, which she did, though about a week later she came back and said, you know, some of those conversations sounded a little bit familiar. So, so there's something in there.
Not too familiar, I hope.
Yeah.
Okay, let's, got a couple of minutes left, finish up on this. In the final part of the book, David's journey, your lead character's journey, takes him to a very dangerous, failed state. You don't name the place. First of all, is it a real place?
It's loosely based on Mogadishu, but it could be
anywhere these days.
Half a dozen failed states.
Right. Why is that? I mean, I'm not going to give away the ending here, obviously, but there is the possibility that this is his last place of research. How come?
Closure. You know, I usually start books with the ending. I knew the ending of this book, you know, from the first inspiration for it, and so I was stuck, you know, trying to get there. And I saw it clearly. I saw the final scene of the book clearly.
You saw the final scene, so you actually, in some respects, wrote backwards.
Very much so, yeah. Yeah, and that's usually the case with my books. So if only for that reason the book ends there, but it also, for me, seemed like the right place in terms of his character and in terms of, you know, where he has arrived. He has been on a kind of voyage of discovery and self-discovery, but it's, you know, the question is, what can he do with this at the end? I mean, is he in a point where he can save himself? That's sort of the question that hangs over the book at the end.
And we will leave that question hanging in the ether because we're not going to give away the ending here. Nino, I just love the book. Thank you for writing it. It's called Sleep, and we're very happy you could spare some time for us at TVO tonight to talk about it. Molto piacere, grazie mille.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Help TVO create a better world through the power of learning. Visit supporttvo.org and make a tax-deductible donation today.